Hey everyone, and welcome back to Joey's Retro Handhelds. I'm Joey, and today we're going to be looking at the Powkiddy RGB20S. In the box, we have some stickers and a manual. And then we have the actual handheld here, and this is in the new purple color, and it's the reason for today's video. The purple looks really nice in person. It's priced at $82 shipped for the model with the 64GB SD card, which would be the lowest. The cool part about this device is there's actual stickers you can put on, and my wife chose the panda sticker, so we're going to put that on and come right back. Okay, we have the panda sticker on and we're ready to go. It added some performance boost. Before we do anything, you saw the other stickers that I shared, but there's also more for Christmas on the website. And so this is as good a time as any to mention that this was sent to me for review by litnxt.com, who I've worked with for a long time now. Check out the link in my description for links to the device, as well as the extra stickers that I mentioned. Let's do a tour of the device, and we have the power and reset buttons on the left, and then there's also the game SD card slot. On the other side, we have the volume buttons and the operating system SD card. On the bottom is the USB-C charging slot, headphone jack, and OTG port, which we're going to be using later on for Wi-Fi. On the front, we have the sticks above the D-pad and face buttons, which is different than pretty much every other device. There's start and select, the FN button, and then the D-pad and face buttons. Honestly, these are all really nice feeling buttons. On the back, there's very clicky back buttons. But as a whole, this device actually feels pretty nice. And the D-pad is a looser type D-pad, which is something that I enjoy. Let's do our usual Pokemon test to see if the D-pad passes the false diagonal test. And now I'm realizing there's no Pokemon that's included on the stock ROM card, so we'll have to add it ourselves. Let me show you how. I'm also going to leave a link in the description to an Excel sheet that I made that lists all the games included on this device. Now, I should mention that it's highly recommended to not use the SD card that comes with the device or the ROMs. The SD card is low quality, it's prone to failure, and the ROMs have a lot of issues. There's different languages, which you'll see in a bit, and also a lot of trouble saving or loading saves. Surprisingly, the operating system SD card that comes with this device is Kioxia branded, which is absolutely fine. So it's just the games that need replacing. I would suggest something like the Tiny Best Set pack, which you can see on screen where to get and use instead. You don't have to do this if you don't want to, but at some point in the future, your SD card or ROMs will fail and it'll be necessary. So I need to add Pokemon to this device. So I connected the SD card to my PC using an SD card reader, and you can see all of the different folders for different game platforms. This is the ROM SD card that I connected, not the operating system one. Let me jump into the GB folder, which stands for Game Boy, and you can see that I added Pokemon Blue right here. Now, if you wanted to use a different SD card for this, you could easily format a new SD card as FAT32, and then copy and paste all of these folders over. Then just replace the ROMs as you go. That would be how I would do it easily. Just go into each folder, delete the ROMs, and put your own, and off you go. With Pokemon added to the SD card, let's put it back in the device and we'll boot it up. If we head over to Game Boy, we can now see Pokemon Blue is right here. Let's boot it up to do the D-pad test. But first, I want to add some colorization and make it look like we're using the Game Boy Color. So I'll push Select plus X to get into the RetroArch menu. Then scroll down to Core Options, GB Colorization, and I'm going to set it to Auto. Head back to the Quick menu by pushing B and resume, and now we can see the colors. The second thing that I personally noticed is it's stretched, as it's using the entire screen. Now, if that doesn't bother you, you can leave it. But for me, I want the original aspect ratio for everything. So if we push Select and X again, Push B a few times and then head to Settings, Video, Scaling, and change aspect ratio to core provided. Then if we head back to the main menu, scroll down to Configuration File, and save current configuration to save our changes. You can see now that we have the right aspect ratio for Game Boy, and it doesn't look like red ate the Pokemon. Okay, finally back to the D-pad here, and the idea is to see if the character moves in any direction except the one that I'm pushing down on. And this most definitely doesn't pass. You can expect a lot of false diagonals with this D-pad if that's something you're susceptible to. Otherwise, the D-pad itself just feels fine. Let's jump out and take a look at how Game Boy Advance looks with Advance Wars. You can see here that we have the proper Game Boy Advance ratio now because we changed the setting earlier. But let's go ahead and play some actual games. So we'll move on to Nintendo DS, and I picked a random Batman game here, which ended up just being in Spanish. So you can really see what you're getting with the stock included ROMs. But let's jump into Bomberman instead, and if you use the triggers in Nintendo DS, you can access the drastic menu, or you can swap the screens. Bomberman is an easy game to play on a single screen, so we don't have to swap back and forth really at all. If we jump into a Sega Genesis game, and one that I don't think I've ever played before, this is Crossfire. Genesis games as a whole run really well on this device. And that all continues into Game Gear, with Power Rangers here. And this was actually fun to play. I've never heard of this one or played it before, and you get to discover a whole lot of cool games if you just randomly click on them. For some PlayStation 1, we have Crash Team Racing, and PS1 is basically the top end of this device, which as you can see, it runs really well. For not so good emulation, there's PlayStation Portable, and we're playing some Spider-Man here, but you can see that it's not exactly perfect. It's still playable, but I wouldn't get this device for PSP emulation, although you might be able to get some games running on it.
Help! Police! No need to thank me, ma'am. All in the days. You know the rest. I'm going.
Jumping into Nintendo 64, and you'll see why I said PS1 is the top end for this device. So firstly, right out of the box with Smash, we have the wrong core, and so you're getting texture issues everywhere. So you'll have to swap between cores for almost every Nintendo 64 game to find what works and what doesn't. But at the end of the day, a lot of them just won't run anyways. As an example, here's Spider-Man for Nintendo 64, and it's running a bit slowly here. So I would personally leave Nintendo 64 off your list for this device. But a system that does run well is Super Nintendo. And let's check out some Mortal Kombat. I'm terrible at fighting games, I know. Now let's jump into an added tip that not a lot of people know about. This device doesn't have Wi-Fi right out of the box, but you can add a USB-C to A adapter and a USB Wi-Fi adapter, and Wi-Fi will work. Now, not every USB Wi-Fi adapter works, so I'll leave a link in the description to what I'm using here. But basically, connect them to the OTG port, head to Options, Wi-Fi, and use the trigger to select the plus sign at the bottom. Now you can select your Wi-Fi network and enter your password. Use your triggers to exit with the X, and now you can do a few things. First, you can update your ArcOS in Options Update. This is completely up to you, it isn't necessary, but it's an option that's there. You can also now scrape metadata and images for any new games you've added. So if we use Pokemon Blue from earlier, I can head to the game, push select, head to edit this game's metadata, and then all the way down to scrape. It'll search and match the game, then you just click input, back out, save, and you'll see your new artwork. My personal favorite, you can also now do retro achievements. So if you jump into a game and do select plus X, head to settings and then achievements, you can enable it, enter your username and password, and start collecting achievements. If you're not familiar with retro achievements, you want to go to retroachievements.com. There's a lot of benefits to having Wi-Fi available if you want it. Lastly, let's do a quick screen comparison between the RGB20S, Miu Mini Plus, and the RG35XX, the three mini Game Boys. These are all at 100% brightness. The RGB20S has the best screen out of all three. Here's the 35XX next to the RGB20S so you can see the difference up close. Now with the Miu Mini Plus, and it's a massive difference. The RGB20S is also just a bit bigger than the 35XX in every way. And it's a lot bigger than the Miu. And for fun, here's the RG405V. It's so big that it's comical. That's going to be it for this one. Hope you liked the video. It was hard to do a video on a much older device like this that everyone's already familiar with or already has one. Don't forget to like and sub to help the channel grow, and hope you all have a good one.